Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cardboard Herald, my chance to talk with creative gamers and game creators. And this time, bringing in a creative gamer all the way from Finland, we have Tuomas Mansikka, and you are here to bring us a game all about the Kalevala. What's going on, Tuomas?
It's a good question. I'm quite Kalevala has been translated to 60 languages, but I can still confidently say that the game itself, the theme hasn't been translated to a game yet. So there might be people who would be interested. Well, what sort of a deal is this Kalevala? Something Nordic mythology that isn't Vikings.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know about the Kalevala because I am a Tolkien geek, as anyone who has followed this channel for any amount of time knows that I am. And it was a huge inspiration for Tolkien and his love of languages, and Finnish was one of the main languages that inspired him to get into philology. And I know a lot about the Kalevala for the layman, but I gotta imagine that most people who are listening to this in North America or England probably aren't up on their Tolkien studies or their 19th century epic poetry. So for the audience here, can you just kind of give the nutshell overview of what is the Kalevala?
Yes. So we have, on the 19th century, on the era where a lot of nationalism in the romantic sense was raging on. So our share of it was this poet and also a doctor called Elias Lönnrot. So aside from his medical studies, he had a wonderful idea to why not try to get a grasp of what's the folklore in the setting of Finland, which is in the eastern side, where he was thinking that it was mainly has been staying on as it has been for many hundreds of years. So he ventured there a couple of trips and sort of oral footage he got and recorded it into poetry, into runes. And obviously he used a lot of creative input of his own to make it a cohesive story. Though if you read Kalevala from front to back, you will find out that it's skipping maybe at some point it's talking about this character Kullervo, but then it might return to him later on. So it's not in that sense easy to read. And also the language used is very much as you would hear it, someone singing it or using some catchy phrases. So some words are being repeated. So it makes sense in that sense that there was some story of a man who sang to him 2 hours in non-stop.
So for people who are familiar with some of the traditional epics, you have things like Wagner's Ring Saga, and then you also have, the Lord of the Rings. But I think of the Kalevala as more akin to maybe Sir Thomas Malory's the King Arthur stories, the Knights of the Round Table, collections of fables from a culture that ended up getting refined by one person that may be coming from different eras, but then kind of made into one sort of cohesive thing. Now, for those of us who aren't in Finland or raised in Finland or Finnish at all, how pervasive is the Kalevala in Finnish culture? Is this something that the average kid just growing up in Finland would hear about, possibly may have read some in school, or is this a little bit more obscure? How ingrained into Finnish culture is the Kalevala?
Yes. So in schools, it's very much the thing of at the elementary level that it's been something compulsory to study. But then again, it's still very much like teachers and other authors are trying their best to keep the legacy of Kalevala as our national epic going on, because it's very much a book that is sort of deep rooted into the culture, since the tales within Kalevala are tragic and the main characters are sort of demigods instead of this Greek style of these epic gods who would just be invincible in a sense. But then again, there's also the Greek tragedy that there's like they are facing each other constantly, and even like within their own side, there's like some problems with sisters, brothers, and all these family relations are going on there as well. And sort of like it's very melancholic. Also, the Kalevala, since like the main characters are always trying and striving towards something, but they rarely even succeed.
In some ways, you know, if you're that Tolkien geek like me, I think this may be more Silmarillion than it is the Lord of the Rings itself. It's these legends that are often tragic and about characters maybe working against their destiny ultimately to succumb to it. Often there's objects of power, often there's mysterious forces. It's really fascinating stuff. But we're here to talk about a game about the Kalevala, which, as you said, not a lot of people have seen, period, but no one, as far as we're aware, has made a modern tabletop game based off of. Why was this the ideal setting for a hidden movement game? Like, what about this story allowed you to bring something interesting or new to this genre of gaming?
Like the most known tale out of Kalevala is revolving around this artifact called Sampo, and that's in some ways you could make a comparison to the ring as an item in the Lord of the Rings saga. So basically, they're all trying to get it. They first forge it. It does take a long time, a lot of effort, but then they actually trade it away. The heroes in the story, in some sense, though you could argue against that as well. But then they go and try to get it back. And they do, but then the trip back home is definitely not safe. And the game takes place there. And it's sort of like, if you think about the Lord of the Rings, there's the ring bearer. So in the game as well, there will be the Sampo bearer, which is like the key element in the game, at least winning the game. So it's like you have leaders in the game, which are the heroes in the saga, but you have also like these decoy leaders, like some are just trying to distract or otherwise aid the Sampo bearer, like as in the Lord of the Rings. But then you might ask, then why not do it in the Lord of the Rings setting? Obviously, there's the game Hunt for the Ring as well, hidden movement, Lord of the Rings. But this was very much also wanting to do a team versus team hidden movement game, which there are not too many. There are some like Sabotage, the most recent one from Team Fowers, but this is like, as the setting was just already there for the team-based, as the three heroes of Väinämöinen, Ilmarinen, and Lemminkäinen all went to Pohjola. So it's basically you have a group of three heroes and then obviously three rivals as well against them. So it takes very well to a game which is for 1 to 6 players.
Okay, so we have a hidden movement game. There's these beautiful boards. You got these really killer cards in them and these enormous player shields that have the maps and everything. Talk to me about the actual production, how this looks on the table, and you know what are typical game sessions going to be like, or what's a turn in this game?
So the turn is usually quite fast in a sense, because you just, if you are, let's say, a 6-player game, 3 versus 3, you're just controlling one leader. So you basically will do an action with the leader if you want, and you will move with the leader. And that's basically it. There's one asymmetric thing between the two sides, which side you're playing on, but mainly it's just like trying to figure out where is the cool place to move in the map. So that's basically, it has, instead of like small player shields or like usually in the hidden movement, there's a pen and paper solution to keep track of where we are. So in this game, it's trying to do something innovative with the vertical game map instead of horizontal. And that leaves a lot of table space, but also creates this poker-like feeling of, okay, when there's a combat, you can see the eyes of the others in the other side, but nothing else. And then you will play the card and see what happens. Did they anticipate right or no? And because it's a vertical game map, you will use magnets instead of regular wooden tokens. It's wooden tokens, but with a magnet at the bottom of it. Let's see how it will be in the real production, but it will use magnets and vertical board at least.
And this is such a fascinating aspect to have the magnets, the vertical board. What I'm trying to conceptualize people playing this game. You have your player shield, you have your map that's on it, and it's magnetic. Is there any shared player space in between the two player shields that's like a common area that both players look at?
Good question. On both sides of the SHRM or like the wall is like the common areas. On the other side of that will be the Tuonela cards, which stack up because it's trying to emulate the tired journey of the heroes. So it's sort of like reverse deck building in the sense you have to give up your starting resources, and they all go to Tuonela, which is the land of dead, the Manala, which is sort of like all the inhabitants at Tuonela and the lord itself are like actually alive instead of they're people you could go and talk to. So in the sense, it has a game impact that you could try to reclaim those cards, and also has impact in the combat. That's one side of the and then the other side, you have the things you can obtain within the game. So obviously, because there's like land routes and there are water routes, so it's very crucial to know if other side takes a boat, they have the capability to travel on water areas. So things like that, it's good to be on the common areas, so you get to see, something was taken from there, and obviously should be announced in good manners to the other side as well.
Well, this Kickstarter is swiftly approaching as of us recording this. It's going to be launching in April. And how much of the development of this game is already done? Is there any more work to do for the actual design?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to do, I'm more doing the rules reference style as of now. So there's work to be done with the learn to play aspect. Obviously, having gaming rules to do the live playthrough will help, but also to have something written format with the game. So learn to play is one aspect, and like having illustrative examples of the gameplay and the flow of it to make the first gaming session much more easier. So that's the biggest thing, but also like something extra fun for me to do is the expansion design, which will incorporate more of role-playing elements, as there will be like a third side of gameplay, which will be someone is going to control the Tuonela. So we'll try to, in that sense, balance it down and do the devil's pacts to the both sides of like trying to do vicious trades with the other sides. So that's going to be something I'm working on currently besides the regular job I have. But luckily, it's only 4 days a week now as a psychologist, so that helps, so that it isn't at least 40 hours as of now.
As of now, you get a little bit of a break. I mean, you got a Kickstarter coming up. You got to have that time to work on it. So, tell me, is this your first design, or have you had a lot of experience in game design?
Yeah, it's the first serious design, which I've been working a few years now. But the others, I've been like more for the family enjoyment, playing with friends and family. The main joy of that was the creative experience and sharing it with my little brother. So in that sense, like let's say the World Brothers doing the PAX premiere, something as like them, they really seem to enjoy that aspect of brotherly design, and I can definitely concur with that. It was something that was keeping both of us minds going and interactions sweet and running.
Okay, so you've designed games for your brothers to check out before. You're taking inspiration from the Whirly Brothers. Are your brothers involved in this project?
Yeah, well, the brother I was working before, he was saying, okay, maybe I'm not joining in on this ride, so this was mainly on my own. But he was something his opinions are the highest priority for me. It's like He's very insightful as a playtester as well. And basically, he's also the best kind who's very harsh on the feedback. So that's also one aspect I really enjoy.
Oh, yeah. Grown-up little brothers love torturing their older brothers as much as possible because they got it so much when they were kids that when you're on that even playing field, it's just like, man, I love you, but I gotta rip you to pieces on this thing. I know because I'm a little brother, so my big brother Brian has to take it from me every time we're together. Now, one thing before we get into kind of like the evolution of design is I noticed that this game is Kalewala. I mean, it's not Kalevala. Like, what is the name taking inspiration from?
Yeah, in the old Finnish language, you saw a lot of that. Basically, the word old is in Finnish vanha, but you could see it written with the W. Vanha is like also old Finnish. And so Kalevala, you could see when it was first iteration of it in 1835, you could see that there was actually with the W there, Kalevala. So I wanted to honor that, the old time period, because the game itself is also very true to the historical nature of the Kalevala. The historical art is there, and it's basically not taking any liberties. I'm following the theme as well as I can.
I could listen to you say anything in Finnish all day because it sounds like I'm talking to someone in the Lord of the Rings. Like you are an elf to me right now. I'm sorry. You could say like Aina Lindale, and I would be like, oh my god, are you from Valinor?
That's actually a comment on that because we have to marketize in a unique way this game. We have done locally with the zero budget. We have done a short film about the Kalevala, which is why I have the horns on the background. You might not see it, but in any case, Kalevala there we are all saying in Finnish. There will be English subtitles as well. But if you love the way of old Finnish, how it sounds like, you have the best opportunity to hear it in the short film, which is used for the Kickstarter. Definitely.
I mean, speaking of the Kickstarter, you know, you were talking about how you're still working a little bit on the game itself. What are some of the unique challenges that you think you're going to face as a self-publisher from Finland? I mean, I gotta imagine there are differences between being a publisher in North America versus being a publisher in England versus being a publisher in Finland. And I know that there are established tabletop game publishers in Finland, but yeah, I gotta imagine there are some unique challenges for you.
Yeah, I think the latest one is Sami Laakso, who's doing the like everything on his own, the publishing, the art, the design. For this one, it's like got it on at the start of February, no, at the end of January. I got a contact to handle the commercial aspects. So he's handling the company side of the things, but it's very much still like the self-publishing. So it's a lot of work. And besides that, it's a challenge to start from zero in a sense. With it's no big names involved. Everyone's first, it's the graphic designer's first game, the ones who's doing the illustrations first game, the publisher's second game. So it's especially in the market to get in a saturated, if you will, it's not easy to pop up. I mean, you have games like Gloomhaven on that time period that will launch on 9th of April. So the Gloomhaven is still going on. So many rivals are there, but also in a good sense, I hope that games are being good and supporting other games being played. But it's just a difficult question that you asked. The challenges are so many that it's hard to even think about like listing all of them.
For sure. Well, aside from reaching out to the most charming of podcasters and YouTubers, what are some of the action items that you're working on? Like, do you have individual steps that today I need to do this, and tomorrow I need to do this, and I need to contact this person, I need to contact this person? Do you have a lot of that kind of stuff lined up between now and April 30th?
Yeah, it is true. The action list is like, let's say, for example, today is the Kalevala Day of Finland, big day in this sense for the game. to try to announce it in some sort of way, at least here in Finland, because the game is currently being displayed at the Finnish Museum of Games. They had an exhibition of the games of Kalevala, which is mostly about role-playing games and digital games, but it also has this Tale of Sampo game.
That's amazing. That is so
It
cool.
It is. So I'm going there today to demo the game, and also as of tomorrow. So these are like the exhibitions, even though you might think that it's just one Kickstarter backer here and there, but they rack up, and it's something nice to post to the marketing as well. It's you have places to play test the game, and I'm trying to spread it out a bit. I have a dear friend of mine who's going to Norway to hand the game out there as well. So trying to spread the word is the biggest challenge here. I mean, Kalevala, you can easily see, okay, this might sell well in Finland, but how much of a niche is it internationally? I don't think so. I've reached to some publishers who are thinking that it will be too much niche for them, but in any case, I've had good feedback as well from the various big name publishers I've contacted. So it has helped me to focus on the things I need to focus before to sort of like make the Kickstarter a success.
I actually think that Western culture is primed for this right now. I mean, when you think about the enormous success of Game of Thrones, of course, was what brought fantasy really to the mainstream. I mean, before that, you had The Lord of the Rings as motion pictures, and those were huge movies, but I think they were seen as kind of flukes, whereas Game of Thrones was something that was everywhere. It was pervasive. It wasn't the nerds are seeing this. This is what culture is seeing. And then in its footsteps, you have things like The Witcher, the game and the show, and that has this Eastern European vibe, more abstract of concepts and how magic works and monsters and how society interacts with these different things. And I think that's more than anything what would be a familiar touchstone for people who haven't been exposed to the Kalevala and aren't those people who are like going back to different draft versions of the Silmarillion going like, oh, it's so interesting how Turin was referred to here, but he's not referred to in this version. So I think that there's a lot of things in place that would make this really appealing for people. That and the fact that Vikings are the new zombies. They are everywhere. People are tired of Vikings. We want something new. So I think this is a really exciting opportunity, and I'm rooting for you. There are a couple things that I wonder about, like when this is your first big debut, your first design that you're putting out there. It's a hidden movement game, and hidden movement is already something that is kind of a niche genre, and then you also have the theme, which is a kind of niche theme. Like, what about this game makes it accessible to the average board gamer, or is this going to be the type of game that only real hardcore board gamers are going to be into?
This is a favorite topic to speak about. So the game is like a medium weight, and basically all of the design choices for the gameplay, at least when I was doing the streamlining part of the developing, not just designing, there was the moments of trying to put it like you could teach it in 5 minutes, and if you know what you're doing, and some aspects can be taught with it while the game is going on, like the combat. You don't need to know about that at the start, and at the start, even though you have different cards with interesting abilities, most of them unique, even still you only need to know them in combat. So basically you just need to look at the colors of the cards to do various actions within the game, because you have to destroy a card to do the effect. So in some sense, it's some sort of like reverse effect, because some gamers might be intuitively seeing or reading out like, oh, this card does this, so I wonder if I can just play it. But some newcomers who don't have those preconcepts might be in a better spot in some case, because it might take a long time. Okay, I can't play this card as it says only if I win with this card in combat it happens. And yeah, just trying to think. I had other things to say as well.
Well, I mean that sounds cool, but one of the things about hidden movement that I've always seen as kind of a problem, so to speak. Here's my beef with hidden movement, which is a genre that I like, but I always feel like it's designed around fixed player counts, right? So, you know, like I would say Fury of Dracula is a game where you want lots of people at the table because it's a drag to be one person who's controlling all the heroes with different separate hands. That this is my hand, I put it down, and then I'm the other hero. I put that down, and then I'm the other hero. On the other hand, take Hunt for the Ring, which we talked about earlier, where it's a game where the Nazgul, to me, actually feel like all one set of pieces that cohesively work together in such a way that I actually feel like it's best when one person is playing all the Nazgul and you only have one hand to operate with, but on that hand you have 4 deliciously evil figures going onto the board. And if you play at higher player counts, you feel kind of hampered in a way. And so a lot of hidden movement games tend to rely on specific player counts to be best. And is that an issue that you tackled with this game? Is it a game where, I mean, you could play at 2 players, but it's best at 6 because that's the only way that it's really meant to be played? Or is there some sort of accommodations in order to make it more flexible than that?
Well, with the upcoming expansion, it will be up to 7 players.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think it's trying to fix that. I recognize it as a major problem in the hidden movement games. Myself, I'm a board gamer in this era where people will just might even randomly show up. So it's good that the game is flexible for different player counts, and even if someone needs to leave while the game is going on. So because it caters to different player counts, obviously it caters to different personalities. So my brother would prefer the agency of the 2-player game. This very intense head-to-head experience. But if someone is playing for the first time, it's very nice for them that there's a teammate and some players. Because in my opinion, the cooperation within the team while being against another team, while sort of like thinking what you're saying out loud, obviously, is a sort of like aspect that is missing if you do the 2-player game. It's more methodical in that sense if it's just 2 players. And also to wrap up to your previous question is also that I'm trying to help the first players to have enough luck in the game, but obviously not too much, but sort of like you could easily win if you have your first go at it. It's not like you only win if you have mastered the game by playing it hundreds of times, because the market is sort of so that the first session needs to be successful, or at least the second one.
Well, I'm going to master it from playing hundreds and hundreds of times and make sure that no one beats me, especially my older brother. That's all I know. It's like I will never let my older brother win at Kalevala, the Tale of Sampo. I want to know the last thing that I want to take us out with, because I know that you have some things to do today. Like, you got important, legit, like, going to a museum things to do today. But as a gamer, as a person who's grown up playing games, you've spent a lot of time with family playing games, and clearly you've thought a lot about the design community. As a gamer, not the person who made this game, but the person who has to play this game again and again and again, what is the thing that you feel best about? Like that moment where you're like, this is so cool. Like this, if someone else made this game, I would be buying it for this reason alone.
There's the sense of your strategy at the start of the game and the fulfillment on that while being flexible during the game. So the balance of strategy and tactics, but just the one detail or specific part that I would point out is that there's like these, because Kalevala is very rich in theme and there's many other tales than Sampo, so I wanted to incorporate them by doing some sort of like, you could compare this achievement system best video games, that you unlock some new things while you enter another gaming session. So these other tales of the Sampo or other tales of Kalevala are introduced, like let's say you won with a certain style, so a narrative card, which will be like a thematic card, like War of the Ring style, will be introduced as available card for the game if only the team won with this specific style. So it's sort of like, I haven't seen this in other games. It's you wouldn't say this legacy in any way, but in some sense it's just something distinct that I think many other games could start to utilize as well.
It's like a soft legacy. It's a game that remembers previous plays.
So basically, you can tell your own tale of Kalevala.
That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to tell my own tale of the Kalevala when it hits my table, and I am rooting for you in this campaign. Tuomas, thank you for coming onto the Cardboard Herald. This has been so awesome, and I have had such a pleasure speaking with you. If you are watching this on YouTube as it's going up, then that means that it probably launched today. Go check that out. But Tuomas, if people want to find out more other than just checking out the Kickstarter itself, where can people find you?
A Tale of Sampo is the keyword. You can utilize that as to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the places. But in any case, hopefully this was the first big international name that I got on board. So very much thank you for UTAC and on seeing the, like, being faithful and seeing the sort of something's going on in this with this game that isn't already there. And so basically, to follow up other curious, interesting, fascinating people, then Cardboard Herald should help you as well. The gaming rules will be on near the launch of Kickstarter, so you can find out more about it. So I think the short film should, because we finalized it yesterday evening, quite late, it should be available quite soon. It is the Kalevala Day, so we are planning on something spectacular.
All right. Well, I can't wait to check it out. Thank you so much again, Tuomas, for coming on to the Cardboard Herald.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, we have all kinds of other reviews, interviews, and recommendations via writing, podcasts, and video here on our channel and website, cardboardherald.com. Our content is audience supported, so if you want to show your support, please visit our Patreon. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Cardboard Herald.